minutes then, guys, we are back. It is 7 AM on a Sunday morning, and the only reason I'm going to be getting out of bed this early is the return of car boot season, baby. We are back for the 2022 car boot season. Let's go. It is early. I am fueled up on caffeine. Let's get hunting.
Get pickups! Building the bench work! Trips! Live game hunting!
That's right, folks, we are back for car boot season 2022. Full disclaimer, this car boot never actually went away, but the weather's been bad recently, and you know what they say, bad weather, bad car boot. But it looks like spring has sprung, the sun is in the air, so this week I've been heading out to some brand new chariot shops and getting up early and taking full advantage of the car boot season. So without further ado, let's get into this week's video. Before we head out into the wild, though, I just want to remind you folks to subscribe to the channel. It really does help out, and I'm putting out new videos, getting out game hunting, game pickups, and game-related chat every single Saturday live at 5, and I really want you along for the ride. So hit that subscribe button now. Back to the hunt. First port of call this week was the town of North Walsham, a place where I actually grew up, and arguably the best find was at the start of the day. This book looked absolutely incredible, but I did leave it behind. Next door there was a pretty interesting pawn shop, which is something you don't really see too much in these smaller towns. I did check a few of these Switch games, especially Rhyme, as I kind of thought it might have been a limited run game, but sadly it wasn't. There was a limited supply of consoles inside the store, but the prices were pretty high. I did look through the DS bundles, you know, there was a pretty large bundle of games. If there had been one Pokemon game, that probably would have made this worthwhile. Also, you always get those Wii and Wii Sports bundles, but it was cool to see a Wii U. They did have an Xbox and a PlayStation 3. I think we're definitely starting to see these consoles go up in price, so definitely look out for these in your car boots. Next up, we were on to our first charity shop and straight to the DVD section. I keep getting tempted to go back and collect these Simpsons series. I know they're all on Disney Plus now, but these are such cool looking box sets. And for £2, they were a really good pickup, especially when DVDs were buy one, get one free. After seeing that sign, I did decide to delve a little bit deeper into the DVD selection. There wasn't too much there. I was quite tempted though by the RoboCop trilogy, absolute classic. So, a game I see all the time is how old is your brain? I'm going to be keeping an eye out through this video, and we're going to count how many we see in this 1 week's hunt alone. So I'll put a little counter down the side of the corner, and let's see how many we find this week. The next shop we visited was one of those ones that's really challenging to find stuff in, as it is absolutely rammed, literally floor to ceiling with stuff. We had a literal wall of DVDs, games, CDs and books, which I will admit there was a brain training hiding in there. I just didn't catch it on camera, so add that one to the list. But this is what I mean about missing things. On the first sweep of the store, I did miss this free promotional The Lost World mug, which I think was given away free with PG Tips back in 1997. If you've been a viewer of the channel for a while, you'll know I'm a massive fan of the Jurassic Park and Jurassic World franchise, so there was no way I could leave this one behind, had to add it into the collection. Next up was the store next door, and originally I was put off because I saw in the window they had this vintage Lego Technic for £75. When you see things like this, it kind of sets warning signs the shop is going to be incredibly overpriced, but I was actually thankfully quite relieved as they did have some cheap games pretty much as soon as I headed into the back of the store. So we had some PC Sims games, but up here we had some PlayStation 4, some DS, some PS2, PS3. We had a pretty good selection of everything. I think these were like £1 or £2 each, so it's pretty good. So yeah, I had a bit of a dive into these, checked out a couple of the games. You know, there's obviously going to be your FIFA games wherever you go. I was quite tempted by this Def Jam game, but then I kind of realised it wasn't one of the Def Jam wrestling games, which are incredible, more one of the kind of karaoke-based games. Amongst the DS games was, of course, a copy of Brain Training, which I've counted. But there was also this game, Cop the Recruit from Ubisoft, which I've never seen before. You know, it's kind of strange if I see a game I've never seen, so I definitely wanted to pick this one up. Hiding in the toy section was this Pac-Man money box made by Paladone. I think it lights up. I need to put some batteries in it, but I am a sucker for everything that Paladone makes, so I had to add this one to the collection. So this place was actually huge, being over 2 floors, and upstairs there was so much stock. This was just one of 3 rooms. It was absolutely rammed in here, but on to the next town. The next town on our journey was Stalham, just down the road, and the first game we come across is of course Brain Training. How old is your brain? It's time for £2.50. I was quite tempted by this copy of Guitar Hero Aerosmith, but it was a little bit overpriced. If you've watched my previous videos, I've been trying to pick that one up in CX for quite a while now, and of course there was a copy of Connect Adventures for £4.50, which is absolutely madness. But hiding on another shelf was some pretty decent games. So we had games for the Xbox 360, the original Xbox. These Railworks games for train simulators sometimes hold some real value. Some of the expansions for that game are absolutely absurdly priced. Obviously we have some Wii Shovelware Hour with the Dog Island, which I'm sure is an absolutely fantastic game. But the one I was really interested in was Borderlands Game of the Year edition. That's because all of the add-ons for this game are on the disc in the box. You don't have to download them. So if this game ever gets taken away, you can still play those add-ons. I did check the CX price on this Crash game for the original Xbox. This was one I didn't have in the collection, but it was a bit overpriced in this store, sadly. Down the road and onto another charity shop, and strangely this IQ challenge game was incredibly heavy. It was actually like it must have had magnets and it was literally stuck to the shelf. That did confuse me for quite a minute why that game was so heavy, but it was hiding this copy of Rock Band Unplugged for the PlayStation Portable, or the PSP for most people. I did have to check this one. I do already own it, so I did leave it behind. But I also had this nice spindle of DVDs, which I did pull through. There was quite a few cheap PC games, some real classic ones, such as that Warhammer Fire Warrior game, if you remember that. That was an amazing game back in the day. But hiding here was a copy of Fallout 2. It was a kind of sold out version, but for 50p for Fallout, I can't leave my boy behind. I had to pick that one up for the collection. On a shelf just above was further proof that Ubisoft will literally slap the Assassin's Creed name on anything. This weird kind of knockoff Lego. If this had been cheap, I'd have probably added it to the collection for one of those kind of obscurities, but for £4.50, leaving you behind. Our final shop of the day, unbeknownst to me, in Stalham, and I managed to find myself a nice Pokemon colouring book. So I'm just kind of a sucker for anything. You slap the Pokemon logo on it, and I'm probably going to add it into the collection if it's cheap enough. This one had not been coloured in, so that's definitely a bonus. Always check that with these colouring in books. And I did only just pick up the one Pokemon book this time. We did plan to head to Wroxham to finish off, but sadly by the time we got there, all the charity shops had closed. But of course it was time for chippy dinner. But thankfully they'd put these swans safely away behind this fence, even though if you were brave enough you could go beyond the fence to visit the swans. But seriously, they were huge. I would not be putting my children anywhere near those swans or geese.
Here it is then, guys, we are back. It is 7 AM on a Sunday morning, and the only reason I'm going to be getting out of bed this early is the return of car boot season, baby. We are back for the 2022 car boot season. Let's go. It is early. I'm fueled up on caffeine. Let's get hunting.
So we are at the very first stall at the car boot, and my wife has bought this bar sign, so straight away I'm having to go back to the car because I'm not carrying this around for the next foreseeable future, even though I've also seemingly lost the car already. Time to get our hands dirty and get hunting at this week's car boot. So first thing I found was one of these older kind of style plug-in mini Mega Drives. You know, the ones that kind of go into the side of your TV and have 2 or 3 games, but she was asking £5 or £6 for this, so I did pass it up. But this is the thing, at the car boot you can find anything. You can find even cassette tapes, especially Venga Boy's one, absolute banger. But first stand, and I'm looking for games. These ones are pretty overpriced. I think these are like £3 or £4. Like, I was thinking, well, if it was a wrestling game I needed, I'd have probably picked it up. But I did eye some Pokemon cards. So at the car boot, sometimes you can get some real good deals on Pokemon cards, especially if you know what you're looking for. As you can see here, I'm looking through to see some shinies, but sadly there was none there. How much are your Pokemon cards?
£1.50 a pack of 5.
Thank you. One thing I will say about this car boot, it was cold. The sun may have only just been coming up, but it was so cold still. But you know, I'm just happy to be back out hunting for stuff. I'm always on the lookout for little Pokemon bits. You know they're around, and it's just these little things like this that kind of make me laugh early on a Sunday morning. Here we go then, folks, the first pickup of the 2022 car boot season.
And of course it had to be a wrestling game. TNA Impact for the PlayStation 2. I never actually realised this game was released on the PlayStation 2, so definitely a really good surprise and one that's definitely getting added into the collection. So I think this wins the most random find of the day. It's a Big Bang Theory stress relief style thing, which you may just punch whenever you get stressed, but you know, that is how I feel about most people in the Big Bang Theory. But you just have to root through stuff at the car boot. I did quite like these vintage kind of Simpsons pin badges, but I did leave them behind. But you do have to dig deep. And folks, who has this issue? You see green and you think, is it an Xbox game or is it a Shrek DVD? It's always a big question. First time it was Shrek, second time FIFA. Trigger warning here for those of a sensitive disposition, look away now. This little bit of video is pretty hard to watch and you'll see why very, very soon. Sadly, that is right, folks, an empty Wii U case. The games I'm really looking for at the moment are the cheap Wii U games to really bolster that collection, and this was just absolutely gutting. But, you know, we never give up, we never give in, we keep searching. I was just digging through the box, trying to find something. You know, it's home for a Wii Sports. Didn't manage to find this copy of Zelda, but, you know, I'm not a massive fan of these cardboard case Wii games. But, you know, I'm never going to be put off. I'm back on the hunt. That's what I did then, folks. I was straight back in, delving through these boxes of DVDs, looking for those games, keeping an eye out for the green boxes of glory. But I did manage to come across this Taz game for the PlayStation 2. Definitely one of my favourite Looney Tunes characters. Having watched the most recent Space Jam film recently, there was not enough Taz in that film. But shout out to the Nokia 33 or 3210. Please correct me in the comments below. These things are probably going to be around long after mankind has become extinct, hiding around at every car boot. Also, we're still looking through all the games, always looking for some decent Xbox 360 games to add into the collection, or some to flip. Some of the Call of Duty games, if you can get them cheap at car boots, you can trade in to CX for a couple of quid. So it's always worth having a look. But these games, I don't know if it shows it kind of on the camera, they were a little bit wet. As I said, it was still very cold and early in the morning. Some of these games were a little bit clammy. For me personally, this is my favourite way for stall owners to display their games and DVDs, laid out flat so you can easily see what they have. So I was instantly drawn to this copy of Watch Dogs for the PlayStation 3. So I think I have this on the PlayStation 3 now, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox 360 and even the Xbox One. I was a bit confused at first by the pricing on this game, as I couldn't tell if it was a 1 or what. It was just basically a black line. I don't know if it's that obvious there. You can kind of see it looks like the price has been changed or crossed out. But yeah, I was definitely going to ask about this one because for a quid I just want to complete the set and get it on all 4 of the sites. So, on to the next stand, and I'm always looking for lights for the games room, but this was a little bit overpriced. I couldn't really tell if it was like vintage or quite new, but I did like the style of it. But with some stores, I think people do ask quite a premium on their items. You know, we had some pretty cool like old Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet figures down here, as well as in a minute you're going to see on the floor a load of comic books and graphic novels. But some people just ask a higher price, and the car boots I'm really looking out for those cheap bargains. Next up, we're going to see some of my amazing haggling skills in action. You know, sometimes I think at the car boot, it's all about the gift of the gab. You know, you don't really want to accept the first price. You want to try and push your luck that little bit. And that is how basically I have slowly built my game collection, arguing people down from £2 to £1 on games. You know, you're getting them then for 50% of the price they're asking for. Everyone's happy. They're getting rid of games they don't want, and you are adding games into your collection. Everyone is in fact a winner. It wasn't until about halfway through the car boot that I finally came across a copy of Brain Training, How Old Is Your Brain, to my relief. But, you know, I seriously think now there is more copies of this game than there is people on this planet. But one thing I'm always looking for, as well as games, is lightsabers. And this one was a beauty, like a double-ended lightsaber, as well as this weird one which kind of had this action bit where the kind of sides of the lightsaber came out. Sadly, these were quite expensive, but kind of looking back, some of these lightsabers are huge, especially when you get the kind of double sabers. They are pretty big, and you know, I do have a finite amount of room, so I did pass up on these, sadly. General Grievous will be disappointed. So this is what I really enjoy at the car boots. Just a floor absolutely covered in games from all consoles and all genres. And the best thing about these, they were all priced. It's just annoying when you have to ask for the price on everything. It's just a sign there, £2 each, nice and simple. That is the way I like it. You know, obviously, hopefully there'll be some room for haggling, but there's loads of stuff here. And I definitely picked up quite a few of these games. At kind of £2 each, you can't really go wrong. And, you know, it's just a good way to build your collection or fill in the gaps. But you know me, they might have been £2 each, but I'm always going to try and get a deal. Even if I didn't get a deal I wanted, I did get a deal.
A deal on the 4?
I can't, unfortunately.
Is that?
They're £2 each. Yeah, sorry.
That's alright. Yeah, it's cool.
Sure, oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'll go for a pound on them for shit in there. I've done that before, just walked off with an empty case.
I've done that though, and ordered the wrong game. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
It's just always the one you want more to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a stall back there, had loads of good games, but they were all
Empty.
Yeah.
pound on them then.
Nice one.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
That was the final pickup of the week, and what an absolute bargain it was. 3 games for £1. Literally, you can't do better than that anywhere. They are the kind of deals that make me get up early and go to the car boots, especially because 2 of those games are absolute bangers, and they're going to go straight into my CX trade-in pile. At the end of the day, if I can get a little bit of CX trade-in while I'm at the car boots, that is what I'm going to do. You know, we get up early on a Sunday morning to get out there and build our game collections. Even though it might be early starts, it is worth it. This is how I have built my game collection, getting up there and slogging through these stalls first thing on a Sunday morning, come rain or shine. Now, let's head back to the games room and check out this week's pickups.
It was so good to be back out there on a Sunday morning hunting for that gold at the car boot. And the charity shops were also really good this week. So the first item I picked up was this Lost World promotional mug, all the way back from 1997. This thing's actually in really good condition. I've got some of the sold listings on the side, so I paid £3.50 for this. I think I could easily put about a £5 value on it. It's not the most valuable item of all time, but it's definitely one I'm happy to have in the collection. The next game we picked up was Cop the Recruit for the Nintendo DS. This cost £1.50 and it's about a £3 value game, so not too bad getting this for half the price it would have been in CX. Secondly, we have our Paladone Pac-Man Money Bank. So the eBay listings are a bit all over the price for this one, so it looks to be about the $12.99 mark, but for me, just to add him to the collection is priceless. One of the more surprising pickups for me this time was the Borderlands Game of the Year edition, which didn't have a price in the store, but I paid £2 for it, which is actually how much it sells for in CX as well. So kind of, it's a null point there, but I've never seen this one in CX, so I was glad to add it into the collection. The other one is this Pokemon colouring book, which is brand new. This was £1. It would set you back in the shops £7, so pretty good dial up on that one. The first game we picked up of the Car Boot Season 2022 was TNA Impact for the PlayStation 2. So sadly this game does actually retail for about 50p in CX. I did pay £1, but it's a wrestling game I don't have. I have to pick it up. The next 2 games are actually 2 of the more surprising games of this week's pickup. So the first one, Taz wanted, is actually a £5 game. So I paid £1 for it, it's worth £5, but I'm glad, Taz, that people realise how much you are truly worth. Secondly is Fallout 2. This game normally sells for about £3, so I was happy to pick this one up for 50p. I know PC games may not hold a massive amount of value, but it's always good to add a Fallout game I don't have into my collection. Next 3 games were definitely the bargain of the day, so I got these 3 games for just £1. So starting off, we have Avatar the game for the Wii. This is about a £1.50 game, but the 2 heavy hitters are Time Splitters 2 and Time Splitters Future Perfect. So Time Splitters 2 will trade in at CX for £2. This will trade in for £4. So we have £6 of trade-in value out of £1, and we get to keep a copy of Avatar the game. That is some car boot deals. Here we have this week's final pickups then. So the first game is The Godfather Mob Wars. This is the heavy hitter of the 3. This one sells for about £6. Next up we have Nitro Bike, which is about a £1.50 game. Then we have Alone in the Dark, which is about a 75p to £1. And finally we have the Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, which is the real fail of the week. This is worth about 50p, and even worse than that, I already have it in the collection. But sometimes you get lost in the moment. You're just out there trying to pick up the games. You don't always want to be scrolling through your phone, checking for games, especially when they're only a couple of quid. but I did say in the commentary of the video I did manage to get a deal. So £2 each, she said £8 for all of them, which is obviously no deal, but I did manage to get this very lovely PlayStation Paladin pen topper thrown in on a deal, and at the end of the day that really is priceless. There we have it then, folks. That's the first car boot of the 2022 season in the bag, and we had an amazing weekend out car booting and charity shop hunting. So this week we spent £21 on games, but that brought us to a value of £48 as well as £6 trading credit for CX. So we've more than doubled our money and got to add loads of awesome stuff into the collection. All in all, I think that's a good weekend's work for the game collection. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. I'm just glad to be out again in the sun hunting for that gold at the charity shops and the car boot. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment below what your favourite pickup of the week was and what you've recently picked up from the car boots or charity shops. You know, I just want to spark some conversation, hear what you folks are finding. I find some amazing stuff and I'm sure you do too, so let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please remember to like it and subscribe as I put new videos out every single Saturday. Once again, thank you for watching. The channel is nothing without you folks, and as always, keep playing the game. See y'all soon.